All right. Welcome. I know it was a quick cutoff there for the music, but I'm so excited to get started. So, welcome to the Profit Lab show and podcast. I am your host, Marie Torossian, CPA and a certified TEDx business coach, and I'm so glad you are here. If you're new to the show, go ahead and subscribe, like my channel or the page that you are watching us on or listening us to so that you can get all the alerts when we drop any new episode, which would be every Wednesday at noontime Eastern on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, podcast, every channel you can think of. We're all everywhere. So, and that is part of the 10x marketing strategies to be as omnipresent as possible. So that's what we're doing. All right. So today's conversation, we're going to be covering pillar 2 from the Valuation MT framework. And that's going to be about assessment and analysis. So think about it. You can't improve what you do not measure. So let's talk about how to assess your business, understand your numbers, and identify the gaps that are costing you profit. Nobody wants to lose profit, right? Like we don't want that. So here's the thing. Let's be honest about, what happens with most entrepreneurs. They hate looking at their numbers. That I've seen that happen over and over again with many of our clients. And I had something happen to my system. How interesting. One moment, and we're going to get this set up again. All right. Okay. Something is really technical happening. Sorry, technical disturbances. It happens all the time, but it's not going to stop us. Okay. Where was I? Yes. Most entrepreneurs, they just hate looking at their financials, and it feels overwhelming to them. It feels confusing or just plain scary. Actually, one of my clients is also my, grandmaster in Taekwondo, and and you can look up his testimonial on Google. And one of the things he said, and I think it's on LinkedIn too. And he said something about, he can, take on 10 people attacking him in any situation, but then looking at his numbers, just scary. And the only way that he can really feel comfortable is that if I actually walk him through it. So I understand that it's, looking at numbers is not easy for everyone. And that's why you want to have a coach or your accountant that is actually helping you see the numbers and really understand what they're saying. That's the whole point. So your numbers are going to be telling a story, but if you're not reading that story, you're kind of flying blind. You're running a business with no numbers, kind of winging it, and that's just only going to get you so far, and things are going to start crashing. So with that, I want to talk about the 5 numbers that every business owner must know. So let's go through them one by one. I'm going to give you examples and then give you your homework. You ready? Let's go. So the 5 numbers every business owner must know. Your revenue, your top line. That's really important, right? How much money is coming in? So again, I'm not going to complicate it today with cash basis accounting and accrual basis accounting. I'm just going to keep it plain and simple. Money coming in. Whatever is the service that you're doing to earn revenue, to bring money in, that's what we're talking about. And of course, at different stages in your business, certain things are going to be, very important. If there's really no revenue, I hope you're not just incurring expenses over and over, right? So the focus is going to be to get your marketing right, to get a sales process right, to be able to get that revenue, right? Close the deals to be able to get that revenue and then deliver top-notch service. So that's the top line, revenue. We really have to focus on that. And I know... most people say, well, accountants always try to, cut expenses. And I totally understand that that's what most accountants recommend because that's what their training is. The difference with what I teach and what I coach is focusing on revenue first. Why? I've been in situations where the business owner wants to keep cutting costs. And at the time being, the CFO, I was like, okay, we can cut costs here, cut costs there. But it gets to a point where there's really no more cutting of costs. There's nothing else you can cut because then you might as well close your business. It's not going to run. So that's why I really focus on revenue and revenue generation, because that's really what's going to make things, it's going to help you pay bills, right? It's going to help you sustain you're going to, your business. It's going to help you build your cash flow. It's going to help you hire more people, really build an economy in your community. So with that, I would say I stand out that way because I really focus on revenue generation. And with the 10X training that I have, obviously I'm bringing a lot of that disciplined mindset and really coaching my clients to how to focus on revenue. What are the things that are gaps within that area? Obviously, today is not the deep dive conversation on this. It's a little bit more high level on the financials that, and the key numbers that you want to look at. But again, just to kind of explain why I focus on revenue. Now, the second number that you want to know are the expenses. What are you spending on and why? I think a lot of times we get, offers of like this software, that software. You have no idea how much I see of increase in software costs in a lot of our clients. And sometimes, you sign up, you want to use it, and maybe you use it for a little bit and then forget about it. There's a lot of things that you can do to look at your expenses, see what you're still using, and get rid of the ones you're not using. That's a lot of money going out the door. It's a great way to look at things yourself and really be familiar with what are the key expenses that you need to properly operate the business, right? And then cut what you don't need. And that's not something you do maybe once a year. You should probably do it every month. If that's too much for you, you can do it every quarter, but it has to be systematic. It's not like, oh, once in a while I take a look at it and see what things are, what's expensive. No, we want to be more systematic and disciplined. The third number you want to look at is your profit margin. Basically, how much money are you keeping after you've paid your expenses, right? So if you received $1,000 in revenue, and again, I'm just keeping simple numbers here, and you spent $20 on software, say, you're left with $980. So that's your profit and your margin. So you want to calculate as a dollar, you want to know the dollar amount, but you also want to know the margin, which is the percentage of revenue. So you want to know your expenses as a percentage of revenue. So do you know those numbers? You want to take a look at that. And I'm going to give you an activity towards the end that's going to help you do that exactly. Because this podcast, as I promised in the beginning, is not just ideas. It's about really helping you do it yourself and really gain knowledge and really, take action on the things that I'm talking about here. It's not about just listening and learning all well and good. It's all about taking action, right? That's going to move the needle. Okay. So we talked about revenue, expense, profit/profit margin. The fourth number you want to know is your cash flow. Do you have money in the bank when you need it? Simple terms. I'm not going to complicate it. Again, too much accounting, but do you have enough money in the bank? I have met, I've had prospects. Well, they tell me, well, Mary, I want to invest in this. I want to buy this type of, asset so I can build my business. But I just look at my cash balance. Well, it's good to have the cash balance. You know how much money you have. However, your overall financials are also going to tell you how much of that money is already meant to be paid for things, right? So for example, if you have a credit card, you have a loan, you have other things, you look at your cash balance, a portion of that cash is meant to pay for these things, right? So you also want to know, yes, you want to know the cash balance, but you also want to know how much of that is already going to be used for paying things that are owed, right? So that's a very important number to keep track. Just put it somewhere that you keep that balance going upward. The intention is to get that balance to go upward, much higher than what you owe, much higher. All right. And the fifth one is your cash runway. And this is something that we saw so many businesses, close down during COVID. And that's because other than the shutdown itself, I don't think they were prepared with the proper cash runway that would help them pay for things or stay in business when things are shut down. So the intention, or your intention, should be to increase that cash balance, right? Create that cash runway to how many months? Like, try to push it out. If you have only 1 month right now, aim to have enough cash for 3 months. Once you build to that point, move it another needle, 6 months, then move it to 12 months, and then 18 months. So if you are able to build a cash runway up to 18 months, I mean, you can invest the extra cash, if you're not using it, obviously. You're going to use it for, by investing and making more of it. But if something does happen, whether something happens to you and there's no one really running the business as good as you are, or it could be another economic shutdown, you still have enough to survive on and still run the business. Okay. So if you don't know these numbers off the top of your head, obviously we have a lot of work to do here. I want to go through a quick diagnostic to assess where you are. So just, you can take those down as, notes. You can come back to listen to it later. So in your revenue, think about how are you hitting your revenue goals? Do you have a goal for revenue? Do you? All right, let's be honest here. If you don't have, that's okay. Just do it. Pick a number, whatever's that goal, where you need to go, and then try to track towards that goal. Okay. And then you want to look at, is revenue growing? Is it staying flat, or is it declining? The only way to look at that is to look at your profit and loss statement by month. And then you will see patterns of up and down, or just staying straight. So if you're not growing and you're flatlining, what does that mean? You as a human, if your heartbeat starts flatlining, what does that mean? You're dying. So when your business and your revenue is flatlining, that means your business is dying. So it's really important to pay attention to those numbers. Profitability. So what's your net profit margin? We talked about this. So try to aim for 20% plus, especially in service business. So you want your profit margin to be somewhere around 20% of revenue. So, keep that in mind. And again, if it's less than that, again, it's okay. That's why you're here to learn and implement, right? Plan for that and track it. And then part of the profitability, we want to also see that, are you paying yourself what you're worth? So take a look at that. Are you actually paying yourself enough? Because a lot of times you can say, well, if you're an LLC and you're the only person, you might have that 20% profit margin. But if all your pay is going to owners, personal, which is on the equity side, then you're not really seeing a true picture of, like, if that's your profit. If you were to pay yourself as a salary, would that 20% still be there? Okay. Again, any of these stuff that's a little bit over what you're able to understand, that's totally fine. You can always reach out to me at support@theprofitlab.biz and send your questions, and I'll explain a little bit more on the next call, or maybe we get on a call together and we talk about it. All right. Next one is in operations. So do you have documented systems and processes? This is really important, whether it's on the accounting side, it could be your marketing process, it could be the overall operations. Do you have documentation that's replicable, that is trainable? You want to look at that. Can your business run without you for 2 weeks? Can you actually take a vacation and let somebody else run the place? Talk to your customers, handle your team. Do you have that type of person, an operator that can help you? Now, as I kind of mentioned about team, so the other portion of that is, do you have the right people in the right roles? If you're really running everything by yourself, it's going to be very hard to grow your business. You do need team members, whether those are, contractors or they're full-time, based on where your business is at. You want to have the right people in the right roles to help you keep growing and not just decline or sustain and where it is. You don't want to be stuck in that same place that you are. And then the other thing is to look at, are you spending your time on higher level work, say $1,000 an hour work, or are you doing $10 an hour job? If you're spending majority of your time doing lower level work. And there's nothing wrong with the lower level work. It's just that it's something you can delegate while you focus on the higher level work that really, really require your expertise. So whatever you're not really an expert in, but you're doing it because you got to do everything yourself, you might want to consider if you can hire someone and you can, have them do that work. So it opens up time for you to focus on the higher level revenue generating work. The rule of thumb is spend 80% of your time on revenue generating activities. Okay. The next section I want to cover, again, questions for you is, in sales and marketing, do you have a consistent lead generation system? Where do your leads come from? Do you have a documentation of what's really working? Is it maybe a networking event that you go to, such as a BNI or another local chamber? So where are your leads coming from? And do you have that documented so that others can replicate? Your team members can replicate the same thing. And then what's your conversion rate from lead to client? If you got, 100 leads and then you close 20, that's 20% conversion rate. So, and that's a pretty good one. But do you have that documented? Do you even know what it is? Right. And once you do know what it is, does your team do exactly the same? Do they close at 20%? Right. And then do you have a system to follow up with the other 80? So I'm giving you a lot of different ideas and thoughts here. I hope you're taking notes and you really focus your time. Take some time this week to really answer those questions for yourself and just, figure out if what you need to work on. Okay. So again, once you know where you are at, these are questions that are going to help you put down, where you're at, figure out where you're at, and then think about what are the gaps between where you are and where you want to go. If you don't know where you're going, it's going to be, if you don't have a plan and a goal or where you're going to go, then that's another thing. You can't know what the gap is. So if you've never set a goal, then look at what you've done so far, and then look at the gap. Where's that? What's happening that you need to focus on? Okay, so common gaps that I see are revenue gap. The revenue gap is basically things like either you don't have enough clients or you're not charging high enough. So if you don't have enough clients, that means the problem is maybe you don't have enough leads, or maybe you have leads, but you don't have a high closing rate. So you want to look at all of those pieces of like, what is affecting the revenue? The profit gap, let's say the revenue is good, but the expenses are out of control. As I said earlier in the show, you want to look at expenses, but you want to, do it maybe monthly, quarterly, at a minimum quarterly. I would recommend at a minimum quarterly. Look at those different expenses. Like, where is money going and why? Why are we spending it? If there's a true purpose and it's really working, then keep it. If it's not, then get rid of it. So by doing this consistently, you're going to be able to get rid of things you're paying for you don't really need. Another thing I see is the time gap. So, for example, working 60 plus hours a week with no end in sight, like there's something wrong with the time there. There's, if you have the right team members, you have systems, you should not be spending that many hours, right, working nonstop. So there has to be a place where you as a business owner have time to regroup, rest, and come back with more productivity. Because if you're constantly working nonstop and there's no gap, that's gonna be hard. That's gonna be hard for you, for the family, and everyone else around you. So take a look at your time. Where's your time going and why? Again, there's a why behind everything. So do a time audit. Look at where your time is going. A systems gap. So if everything is depending on you, every word, every decision comes to you, that's a bottleneck. That means you are basically costing your business growth. You are the problem. And I know it's hard to hear it. I know I've heard it before for myself. But it's true. If you don't have the right team, you don't delegate, everything comes back to you. You are actually causing the bottleneck. Okay. So look at certain things that you can delegate, and it's things that you can trust to certain people. to help with the decision making, or implement systems that do some of that automated work. Get some of these minutia things and tasks out of the way for you. Okay. And the last one is the team gap. And I referenced it a few times, but if you're doing everything yourself, or you have the wrong people that you can't trust, and this happens a lot. A recent client told me about, he had a salesperson that has not been doing the work the right way. He actually pays well. He's got all the benefits that you could think of, but he's not doing a great work. And for me, it immediately stands out as the wrong person to be in that role, especially if the expectations has been set. Things have been talked about and how to improve, and training provided, all of that. So if you're doing all of that to team members that they still don't do the job right, then they're probably not the right people for you. They're not going to help you. They're not sold on the mission, vision, and your goals. So they're probably taking a seat somewhere, but not really doing the work. So they're the wrong people. If everything comes back to you doing it, you might have to have some, real conversations and make some real decisions here to free up time. All right. Getting close to the end of the show. And of course, I always leave you with your profit question of the week. So this is the question. What's the one number in your business? One number in your business, because we talked about different ones. If you improved it by 20%, would have the biggest impact on your profit. Which one? Revenue, expenses, cash, which one? So again, I'm going to read the question one more time. What's the one number in your business that if you improved by 20% would have the biggest impact on your profit? All right. So here's what you're going to do. Action items. We always close out with action items. All right. I want you to pull your financials from last year by month, not a total. That doesn't show you much. By month. Of course, make sure you add the current month, whatever it is. Like right now, we're in January 2026, but whatever it is, whenever you're listening to this. So the current month, whatever is that current month for you. So then I want you to look at, maybe put it in a spreadsheet because you might see it better that way. Look at your revenue number, your expense numbers, the profit margins, right? Look at it over time, like month to month. What is happening? What do you see? What's the pattern there? Is it going up, going down? Maybe revenue is going up, expenses going up, profit margin going down. So what's happening? I want you to take a look at it. And if it scares you, that's okay. That means you just got aware of something and now you can take action. Okay. Also look at your balance sheet. If you can run it month to month and then put it next to each other and then see of what's the cash balance happening. What's happening there? Is it going up, going down? What's your cash runway? If you look at your monthly expenses and you look at your cash balance, how many months can you survive? So these are ways to look at your numbers and figure out where you're at. So now that you've figured out where you're at, next thing I want you to do is identify your top 3 gaps and rank them by impact. So what are the gaps? Revenue gap, profit gap, time gap, systems gap, team gap. So I want you to think about 3 gaps and rank them by impact. So which one will have the highest impact to lowest impact? And then from there, I want you to set a deadline. Set a deadline. That's how things roll. If you don't put a deadline, nothing gets done. So set a deadline. So maybe it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever that is, to work on them, to solve those gaps. It's not about just knowing, it's about action. You want to take action. And then you can share your findings with me privately if you like. You can email me at support@theprofitlab.biz. And then maybe you can ask that one question and I will answer it on the next session, next podcast episode, or we can jump on a call if you like. Okay. As we wrap up for today's podcast, now next week, we're going to talk about leverage and leadership. It is time to start leading like a CEO and not a solopreneur. So until then, blessings. See you next week. Have a good one. Make sure to subscribe. See you next week. Bye.